Hello crafty friends and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have a fun holiday card for you today featuring the Dare to be Artsy Deck the Halls stamp and coordinating die set. And I am starting off the card here by doing a partial die cutting on a mini slimline card base. So I used 110 pound cardstock and I only did a partial die cutting. And to do that, I basically measured 2 inches from the bottom of the front of my card panel, and then I drew a line with a pencil and I put the dies on there and used a little bit of repositionable tape and then put it on my die platform, my We Are Memory Keepers Revolution, and I had the bottom half of that covered by the cutting plate, and then the rest of it was open so it wouldn't cut when I ran it through my die cutting machine. So that's how you get a partial die cut. And here I am just using a little oh, I forget what these are called. I mean, it's a cutting machine, but it's a paper trimmer. I'm using a paper trimmer and I am cutting the spaces in between the ornaments that did not cut. So I'm cutting right on my pencil line and I'm just lining that up and looking through it and then just trimming it with the blade to cut those spaces. So it will basically remove the bottom half of this panel and I'll have half of the ornaments sticking off sort of the page here. So I'm trimming that up and then I'm going to cut off the very ends. And there you see I have a partial die cut. So next I am going to be stamping my Deck the Halls, the 3 ornaments from the Deck the Halls stamp set, onto, this is Neenah 110 pound classic crest cardstock, which is what I always use when I am going to color with alcohol markers. So I stamp these with some Dare to be Artsy Totally Black ink. And then I'm going to do a little bit of coloring with my, today I'll be coloring with my Shinhan Twin Touch alcohol markers. They're very similar to Copics and I really like them a lot. They're very easy to color with. And I am conditioning these stamps since this is the first time that I've used them. So I'm just using an eraser and I'm conditioning the stamps so that they stamp with the clean image the first time around. And here's my Dare to be Artsy Totally Black ink. And I will stamp that a couple of times to make sure I get a good impression. And actually it stamped fairly well the first time, so I just had a couple places on the bottom ornament that I needed to restamp. So getting those all stamped up. And then I'm going to take them out and I will start coloring, and I'll put on a little bit of music while I'm coloring. When I get to the red coloring, you'll notice that I'm using a brown marker to use for shading. It's because I didn't have a good brown marker to shade, or a good red marker to add a deeper color with. So I will let you watch this and I will be back in just a minute. Okay, I'm back, and unfortunately the last ornament, I didn't get video footage of it because my cell phone battery actually died when I was recording, so it didn't record the last part of it. So I have my card base here, and I'm going to add some Dare to Be Artsy paper to it. This paper is from the Oh Christmas Tree paper pack. It is a double-sided paper, and I am going to be using the striped side, and I have cut a piece of the paper that is roughly 2 inches by 6 inches, so it fits on the top half of my panel and it doesn't cover up those ornaments. And then I'm going to use the decorative edge from the Oh Christmas Tree paper pack, and I'm going to put that at the very bottom there, just underneath that paper, to give a little decorative edge. I like all the Dare to Be Artsy papers all have this nice decorative edge that you can use for your paper crafting. It makes a nice little decorative element sometimes to have that. So I'm just adding a little bit of score tape to the back of this. And when it's paper like this and I'm putting paper on paper, it's kind of hit and miss. Sometimes I use liquid adhesive, sometimes I use score tape, but most often I use score tape. I find that I get a really good strong bond when I use score tape, so I really like it, and it stays stuck down. And I'm going to use my T-ruler here to make sure it's lined up so I don't get it on my card panel all wonky. And so then I also decided that I wanted to add a little bit of glitter cardstock to it. So I cut, I believe I cut 2 strips of the glitter cardstock, just little thin strips, and I'm going to add those up to the top and underneath that little decorative edge there. And I am going to use some liquid adhesive on this, just because I didn't have any score tape that was skinny enough to fit. So liquid adhesive to the rescue. I'm just lining that up there. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the inside of my card, except that in order to allow the card to stand upright, I have to add a piece of acetate in here. So I'm figuring out what kind of paper I want to use on the inside of the card. And this paper is from the Artsy Daizy paper pack. So I'm going to use a piece of that cut exactly to it's roughly 2 inches by 6 inches again. Then I'm also cutting some more of the red glitter paper, because I'm going to do a strip of red glitter paper on the inside as well. First I'm going to go ahead and put in my acetate. So I'm cutting my acetate down to be the same size as the front of my card panel, to make up a full front of the card panel. And I'm going to add that to the inside of my front panel of my card using some score tape. This is 3-inch score tape. And then to cover that up, I'm going to use the Artsy Daizy paper on the inside, along with a couple of strips of the red glitter cardstock. Initially I had thought to do ornaments on the inside, and that's why you see the stamped ornaments there. I was going to put those on the inside, and then I realized, oh, they're going to be upside down, and I decided I didn't like the way that looked. I could have re-stamped them so that the words were stamped right side up, but then the ornaments would still be upside down, and I decided I didn't like the way that looked, so I just left it. But you certainly could add something on the inside just to cover the back of those ornaments and have a decorative element on the inside if you wanted to. So here I'm adding the second strip of red glitter cardstock to the front, and I am using liquid glue on this, since I only needed to put that glue where the ornaments were. And then I'm just going to trim up the end of that so that it lines up. And then I'm checking to make sure where my ornaments are going to go. I am going to add dimensional foam to those, but first I'm going to stamp the little, the stamp set Deck the Halls comes with a little, they look like beads or it's not string, it looks like a line of beads, and I use those for my like ornament hangers. So I'm going to stamp those on my card panel before I put my ornaments on there. And you'll see me do that here in a second. I'm just getting my dimensional foam added to my ornaments so that they'll be ready to go, and I can just pop those up on my panel when I'm done. So here I am pulling off that little stamp and lining it up. I want to make sure that it's gonna be even with where my ornaments are going to be placed on my card. So once I get it positioned and make sure it's going to work for all 3 ornaments. I wasn't sure if it was going to work for the center one because the center one is so tall, but it worked out okay. I'm going to go ahead and put this into my Misty, and I will stamp that with some, I used some ruby red Delicata pigment ink, which I kind of learned a lesson. Pigment ink tends to stay wet a little bit longer, and so you have to be careful not to smudge it. So I stamped it here, and then when I got all done stamping it, I actually did smudge it. I was able to fix it, but you just have to be careful and remember to heat set it before you put your fingers on it or anything like that. So if you're going to use the pigment inks. So I'm just adding those ornaments now. I think this looks so cool. It looks like they're hanging ornaments in front of wallpaper. So adding that, the little ornaments in place with my dimensional foam makes them a little pop up a little bit. So it's not just a totally flat card. And that looks so cool with the clear bottom. I just love the way that looks. So then I realized I didn't glue the inside piece in place. So I'm adding a little bit of score tape to that, and I'm going to get that adhered inside of my card panel so that we're covered up our acetate. And then on the inside of the card, I am stamping the sentiment Deck the Halls with some Dare to Be Artsy Pomegranate ink. I love this ink. It's such a pretty color red, and it looks perfect for this card. It's the perfect color red. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some gems to the card panel. So I added some little red gems to the tops of my little bead strings. I think one little red gem to the top of each bead string, and then I added some green gems throughout the back of the panel. I also added one, I realized here when I was putting these on, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot to color the center of the bow for the center ornament there blue, so I did pull out a little blue gem to put in the middle of that as well. It worked perfectly to cover up my mistake. There's always ways to cover up your mistakes. And here I'm going to add a little bit of Nouveau shimmer pin just to the tops of the ornaments, and then a couple places on a couple of the ornaments. I figured there was enough glitter with the background and then the gems that I didn't need to add too much here, so I'm just adding just a tiny bit. And here is where I am adding my blue gemstone to the center of that ribbon on the center ornament. And here's a look at the finished card. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please take a moment to like and subscribe so you can get all of my content. Thank you.